reparations going to be a bit of a feature in this. So let's delve into what that word reparations means for you.
Yeah, the origins of the word comes from the idea of repairing damage. So for me, reparations is about repairing the damage caused by the transatlantic chattel slave trade. And what was the damage? The damage is multifaceted. It's economic, because ultimately it was about the trading in black flesh. It's cultural, because we rip people away from their cultural heritage and backgrounds and enslaved them, tortured, brutalized them. It's also psychological, because when you've been ripped away from your homeland and you have no sense of history, your background, your culture, it leaves you psychologically damaged, and that damage is intergenerational. It is passed on. And also, the damage requires healing, and that healing isn't just for people racialized as black. It's for all of us who are bound up with the transatlantic chattel slavery history. That's black and people racialized as white as well. So that's what reparations is, repairing this damage.
Yeah, and I find this so interesting because we back in the day, a value was put on the slave trade to give to the slave owners, that 20 million figure. We think in terms now of trying to put a value, a monetary value on things like nature, but how do you even begin to put a value on people and culture and all that was used and all that was lost?
Well, it's possible to do it. There are legal measures and measurements that are used in compensation cases, both nationally and internationally. So, for example, if you were to go for a compensation case today against an organization or the government, they'd talk about pain and suffering, and they would give you a set amount for pain and suffering. And depending on the duration of your suffering, they would add interest to that. They would also talk about any kind of unjust enrichment that your boss or anybody may have received as a consequence of doing damage to you. So those are just two, unjust enrichment, pain and suffering. There are many other measures, and when you go into the legal arena that's international, they come up with about 5 or 6 different measures that you can use. So we can calculate it. We can calculate the number of enslaved people who were trafficked, and we can calculate the compound interest. So let me give you 2 examples of this. I made a film back in 2005 with Channel 4 called The Empire Pays Back, and we did these calculations and came up with a figure of £7.5 trillion in compensation. More recently, I contributed to a report, an international report by an American organization, the Brattle Group, in conjunction with a judge at the European Court of Human Rights and American and Caribbean academics. And we again used the same metrics to calculate the amount of compensation. So it is actually doable in financial terms, at least.